Welcome to Learning English with me and my cat. I'm Georgina, and this is my cat, Renfield. Say hi, Renfield. Say hi. Oh, and there's John behind the camera, too. Say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Okay. All right, I'm going to put Renfield down because he doesn't really like to be held that much. Okay. All right, so today we are going to make a salad for lunch. And we're also going to learn about count and non-count nouns. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my hands because I was just holding Renfield. Welcome to my nice kitchen, by the way. All right, so I'm standing here in front of my stove. Normally I would not make a salad on a stove, but because this is a good place for you to see me, I'm going to take my cutting board and I'm going to put it on the stove. Okay, this is called a cutting board. All right, so we're going to be learning a lot of vocabulary as we make a salad together. And as I said, we're also going to be learning about count and non-count nouns, and especially the phrases that we use in order to count a non-count noun. Okay, so first of all, wait a minute. What is a count noun? A count noun is something you can count. So 1 bowl, 1 cup, 2 carrots, okay? A non-count noun is something that you cannot count. Salt. Can I say 1 salts, 2 salts, 3 salts? No, I can't. So salt is a non-count noun. Water is a non-count noun. Okay, so we'll get into more of that as we go along. But first, let me start the salad because this is actually going to be a nice salad for me and John's lunch.
I'm hungry.
Be patient, John. Be patient. Okay. So as usual with a salad, we start with lettuce. All right, now what do we call this? Do we call this 1 lettuce? No. We call this a head, like a head of lettuce. Why do we call it a head of lettuce? This doesn't look like a head. Well, if you think of other kinds of lettuce, usually they're round, or cabbage also. So cabbage we call a head of cabbage or a head of lettuce. So even though this isn't round, we still call it a head of lettuce. All right, but to make the salad, I want to take off what? The leaves, okay? So the leaves of the lettuce. All right, and the leaves I can count. 1 leaf, 3 leaves, okay? So that's important too. The spelling of the word leaf, for example, is different in the singular than the plural. Leaf, L-E-A-F, and leaves, L-E-A-V-E-S. Okay. All right, so normally it will take me more than 3 leaves of lettuce to make a salad, but because I didn't want you to be bored, I already made some here. Okay, so now I'm going to break, use that verb to break the lettuce into the bowl. All right, actually, this is not a bowl. This is something very special that I'm using right here. This is called a salad spinner. And if you don't have one, you should get one. Even though really I'm not doing a commercial for them. I'm just letting you know it's really great. So a spinner, to spin is, or something that spins is something that goes around. Okay, so if you haven't seen this before, watch this. Put the lid on it like this, hold it down. Isn't that amazing? Whoops. Yeah, I'll hold it down really well. Okay. So maybe not a good commercial for this salad spinner.
Wow.
Hold it. And I pull on this little handle. And it spins the water out of the lettuce. See, then I take this out. Woo! Isn't that cool? Okay, so now the lettuce is fully dry. and the water is in here, and I don't need that anymore. Whoops, I just spilled water on the floor. Oh well.
Nice.
Okay, so we will have fewer comments from John behind the camera.
That's doubtful.
I wonder what Renfield is doing right now.
No.
We want him in here making salad with me, would we? We don't want the cat in the kitchen. Okay, so now I'm going to cut up a carrot, right? Okay, so 1 carrot. Now normally though, how do you buy carrots normally? Often we buy carrots in a bunch. Okay, so that would be a lot of carrots together, would be a bunch of carrots. Even though carrot is a count noun, we can still use the noun bunch in order to count carrots. Okay, wait, I'm going to show you something else. I'm actually not going to put this in the salad because John doesn't like it in the salad. But here's another example of a bunch of something. This is, do you know what this is called? Don't tell John. This is called celery. It's called celery, okay? And altogether, we call it a bunch of celery. Strangely though, if I take one off, I don't actually call this a celery. I call it a stalk of celery, okay? Which I guess makes celery not a count noun. I never really thought about that before, of why celery is a count noun, or celery is not a count noun, and carrots are count nouns. I think that the important thing to remember with English is that we don't really have that many rules. Things are just the way they are. Okay, so let me cut up the carrot a little bit. All right, I'll just cut it up into slices here. So we could say I'm slicing the carrot, or I'm cutting the carrot. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't guess, I am not a professional chef, so this is not a cooking show. My cutting skills may not be perfect. All right. Okay, good.
So modest.
John, I said no comments. Okay, so there goes the carrot into the salad. All right, good. Now, I don't actually care whether John likes these or not, but I'm going to add some bean sprouts to the salad because they make it nice and crunchy. All right, so can I count bean sprouts? Yes, I can. 1 bean sprout, 2 bean sprouts, 3 bean sprouts. I'm not really sure how bean sprouts normally grow. I don't think we would say a bunch of bean sprouts. These bean sprouts come in a bag. So I'm just going to call it a bag of bean sprouts. And, but I will tell you one thing. One reason that we can count some things and not other things are that we tend to count things that are large enough to count. Okay, so I can count the bean sprouts because they're not really that small, but I can't count the salt because each individual grain of salt, a grain of salt is too small to count. Okay, so that might be the same with sand, for example. All right, you can't count pieces of sand. Well, you could, John says, but it would take you a really long time. All right, so things that tend to be too small to count are non-count nouns. Liquid, air, or gas, I should say, gases. So like, you know, oxygen and what else? What else is a gas, John?
Helium.
Helium. Okay.
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen, okay, thank you. So those kinds of things are gases and we can't count them. And also ideas or concepts, you know, like freedom or happiness. Generally, we don't count them. Okay, all right, so let's put the bean sprouts in the salad. Yummy.
Aw.
Going to be delicious. Yes, John, you're going to like it because it's going to be nice and crunchy. Okay, so what else am I going to put in the salad? Now, there are some things that I like in the salad that John doesn't like in the salad. For example, I like tofu. So for those of you who are Asian, you might know more than others what tofu is, but I think everybody pretty much knows. John doesn't really like tofu in his salad, so
It's okay.
so I'm not going to put tofu in the salad. Oh, I am going to put tomatoes. All right, so these tomatoes have already been washed. Now look, these are little tomatoes. You know what we call these? We call these grape tomatoes. Why grape? What is a grape? Well, this looks like a grape. A grape is the fruit that we use to make wine with. That's a grape, okay? So these look like grapes.
And raisins. We can put raisins in salad.
We can put raisins in salad, and we're going to put raisins in salad. Not everybody does that, but John likes it, and I like it pretty well too. Okay, so we're going to put the grape tomatoes in the salad. All right, so can we count tomatoes? Yes, of course we can count tomatoes. They're big enough to count. And also they are individual, you know, which is, so things that tend to not be individual, sometimes like the celery. So the celery comes in a bunch and we call it a stalk of celery. That's because it's not individual, whereas the carrots, you know, once they're, actually a carrot never is all together. I mean, we call it a bunch of carrots because we put them together in the bunch, but they don't grow that way. Okay, now I'm getting into a gardening lesson, so we'll move on from that a little bit. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna cut these tomatoes in half because they're a little easier to eat that way. All right. Oh, so also, speaking of the raisins, which I'll show you in just a minute, what is a raisin? A raisin is a dried grape. All right, and did I mention that grapes come in a bunch? They grow in a bunch on the vine. They grow on the vine. But once we remove the grape from the vine, it becomes a count noun. It's a grape, each individual grape. Okay. Okay, so now we have lettuce, we have carrots, we have bean sprouts, we have tomatoes. Let's add John's raisins. Okay. So, raisins are count nouns. Hi, Renfield. Do you want to come back? Can you hear him walking? Click, 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 and he just, you know, that's Renfield. But we don't want Renfield up here, so we're not going to invite him. Okay, so we'll put a few raisins in the salad. Okay. And I also like to put some walnuts in the salad. A walnut is a kind of nut. They are count nouns. So we'll just put a few of those in there. Did you see the walnut? Sometimes these things, if you can't see it really clearly, sometimes these things you actually need to look up in a dictionary so you can see what it's called in your language. Even though, generally, I don't recommend doing a lot of translating when you're learning English, okay? You want to try, so for example, if I say the word bunch and you don't really know what that means, I would suggest looking it up in an English dictionary to see if you can find a similar word or a synonym to help you understand what that means, rather than automatically looking up the word in your language. There's Renfield scratching something. He got scared and ran the other way. Anyway, so that, because when you look it up in English, it helps you continue to think in English rather than suddenly switching your brain back to your language. Okay, before I add anything else to the salad right now, well, first of all, let's take a quick look at some of the count and non-count nouns that are in the refrigerator. I'll take them out, John, so you don't have to come all the way over here at the camera. Okay, so here's milk. This is almond milk, but pretty much all milk comes in this kind of container. Okay, so we call this a container. Milk is a non-count noun, so we're going to call this a container, or sometimes we say a carton of milk. okay? A bottle of juice. Pomegranate juice, yummy. A jar of peanut butter. Okay, well, peanut butter is not technically a liquid, but it is something that you can't count by itself, right? I mean, it's a, what would you call peanut butter? It's a semi-liquid. Let's call it a semi-liquid, okay? Butter. All right, so this is a box of butter or a container of butter, but the individual butter, this we would call a stick of butter, or if it was more like in a square shape, we might call it a cube of butter. Okay, let's see. Cheese. This would be called a package of cheese.
A wedge.
Very good, thank you, John. But when the cheese is cut into this kind of shape, this is called a wedge of cheese. Okay, so a wedge of cheese. Here we have a bag of chips. Chips are a count noun because they're big and we can count them. Let's think, what else might be good. A box of cereal. Here's an interesting thing. If you want to count the cereal itself, and this cereal is not tiny, you might call this we'll call this an O. But in another kind of cereal, for example, this kind of cereal, which is kind of like cornflakes, I would call each one of these a flake. A flake, okay? Otherwise, it would be a box of cereal. Okay, a can of beans. A bag of pasta. We could count each individual piece of pasta. We might call each one a noodle. All right. Okay, so anyway, I don't have to get everything out of the cupboards here, but once again, we have a carton of milk, a bottle of juice, a jar of peanut butter, a stick of butter, a wedge of cheese. Okay, so, I'm sorry, a jar of beans. Okay, everybody, so our salad is pretty much done. I'm gonna add some tofu to mine. John will add some chicken to his, and we're gonna sit down and have lunch. So it's great seeing you today, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Now we're going to show you some of Renfield's tricks.